The third Emperor's Children character has joined Tacticus, as Adamatar, the Lord Kakophonist, becomes the 99th character overall to join the game. Today we'll see if this maniac musician will be playing their way into your team. When Chiron joined Tacticus, we all looked at him and thought he was missing a piece of his puzzle, and we all felt that Lord Kakophonist was going to be the character from the Emperor's Children that could indeed fit best with him. And lo and behold, Adamatar joins us as the third Emperor's Children character, and the one that should be helping Chiron to fit more clearly into the game. In lore, the Lord Kakophonist was once a proud son of Fulgrim and a warrior of unparalleled perfection, but when Fulgrim fell to chaos, the Lord Kakophonist traded discipline for decadence and tactics for terror in high fidelity. He is a master of sonic warfare, wielding arcane sound weapons so devastating that they don't just kill, they obliterate souls. His armour hums with an eternal discordant aria, and his war gear is as much a musical instrument as it is a weapon of war. Each blast of his cacophonic arsenal is a mix of shrieking static, weaponized screams, and frequencies that melt brains and metal alike. As a lord of the Emperor's Children, he leads warbands of noise marines with a conductor's flair, orchestrating battles like performances, and each enemy death is a note in his symphony of slaughter. His command is not through strategy, but through volume, charisma, and pure overwhelming sensory assault. To unlock Adamatar, you will need to play his hero release event called Honor the Prince, which starts on Sunday the 28th of August. This is the same event that we had to unlock Chiron. In the event, you have to play missions to collect pledge points, which are converted into twisted symbols, and then these are used to unlock exquisite chests, which give you Adamatar shards and other goodies. These shards then let you unlock and level up Adamatar. You can see the missions on screen now, and if you need help with these missions and getting the best possible start, then definitely check out my beginner's guide to character events, which is linked in the description below. The real thing here though is just to play through his missions, use your 110 energy boost every day, and play the tournament arena, and you will manage to get him at epic 1 level by the end of his event. And because it's September, it's time to give away another lovely code to all of you to help you get through the Honor the Prince event for Adamatar. This one, DBP SEP, will give you 10 Asoth shards and a precious 50 energy, and you can keep that in your in-game inbox and use it during Adamatar's event to get a little boost. And in the meantime, if you want to earn some free blackstone to help you on your way, you can use my Refer a Friend code in-game today to get 100 free blackstone. Just note that you can only use one person's Refer a Friend code, so make sure you make the most of it. Now let's take a look at his traits. Adamatar is a chaos character. He has an eviscerating 3 melee attack, which has a 50% pierce ratio, and he has no ranged attack. He has no official relic yet, although it will be fitting into his grit booster slot when it arrives. He only has the Emperor's Children faction trait called Thrill Seekers, and it triggers whenever Adamatar takes damage or targets an enemy with full health. Then Adamatar becomes thrilled for 1 round, and while thrilled, his crit chance is increased, and if he defeats an enemy, it is always overkilled. So very disappointing to see him lacking any other traits. Next, we'll look at the character's melee damage, range damage, and defense. We do this by leveling the character up to be Winged Diamond 3, with level 30 skills and no weapons or equipment. This is just to equalize the playing field. Then Castellan Creed, the character with the most average armor and traits in the game, becomes a punching bag for them to test their damage. And finally, Creed will punch them back to see their defensive skills. This is all then ranked against everyone else in the game, so let's see how they do today. Creed, are you ready for today's test? Today we have Adamatar, the Lord Kakophonist.
Kakophonist is right enough. If I wanted to die listening to bad music, I'd go back to that Prometheum refinery on Cadian date night. We trained for artillery. We trained for ambushes. We even trained for demons, but no one trained us for interpretive death metal. I've seen men shot, stabbed, burned, and melted, but I've never seen a platoon explode from a bass drop until now.
Okay, let's get on with the show. Adamatar's melee attack does 2,445 damage, and he takes 2,868 damage from Creed. And that damage puts him in 64th position for melee attacks, and that is much less than average, but it's no surprise because with his active, he's going to have a much higher potential if he's given the time to overkill champions, because this is going to add extra hits and really boost his own damage significantly upwards. And his defense isn't the worst, as it comes in around 42nd position, which is mid-table again, but you have to remember that this guy wants to be in the middle of the battle, and so I would have hoped for him to be a little bit more defensive in his nature. He is really someone that you should be considering melting for an easy kill and to stop your team being killed from range if you face him on the battlefield. Looking at his Mythic Missions, he has to defeat 4 enemies that have the Obsessive Annunciation effect. He has to deal 10,000 damage in 1 turn while he has the Thrill Seeker's effect active. He has to overkill 100 enemies. He has to score 13 hits in 1 turn, and then he has to deal 60,000 damage while he has the Thrill Seeker's effect active. Then the reward is a basic mythic demonic bolt pistol and enough resources to bring him to mythic. And looking at these, some of these are going to be a real challenge as usual. For the first one, I think you have to overkill an enemy, and then Adamatar will be able to kill an enemy next to him for this to work, as it only buffs ranged champions unless someone is overkilled. The second one will need to be done in a raid after the bosses hit you and with a bunch of other characters boosting Adamatar. So for example, Abaddon with his new update, as well as Eldrion, Athana, and Marnius Kalgar or Trajan are all good characters to help you here. But it's his fourth one that's really interesting, because I think this is going to be really hard to pull off, and the truth is that currently I don't even know if it's possible, so I'm really interested to hear how you're going to be able to do this one. I must be missing something. He starts with 3 hits. You can get an extra 3 hits from Doom Siren, his active, if you overkill 3 characters, and even if you trigger that again with On-Shi to get another 3 hits, and then added in Thoriad's extra hit and Pastillion's extra hit, that's still only 11 extra hits. Who else are we missing there, or do we think that the next Emperor's Children's character is going to be someone that's going to add much more hits here? Either way, that's pretty tough. Moving on to his skills, his passive is Obsessive Annunciation, and is in the buffing category of skills, and this simply buffs all ranged attacks against enemy units adjacent to Adamatar. Then, if an enemy has been overkilled already this turn, it buffs all chaos attacks against enemies adjacent to Adamatar with extra crit damage. So we'll definitely want him to be in the middle of enemies. Should this be prioritized as a skill over others for new players? Definitely if you want to be buffing your ranged troops. And his active is Doom Siren, and this is in the damage category of skills. And what this does is deal 3 direct damage attacks which have a 100% pierce ratio against an adjacent enemy, and then 2 other random enemies adjacent to your target. Then Adamatar's normal attacks will score an additional hit for each enemy overkilled by Doom Siren. And remember that with his Thrill Seeker's trait, if he's thrilled and defeats an enemy with a crit, then he's always going to overkill them. So there's a good chance to trigger this on at least one character. Should this be prioritized as a skill over others for new players? No, because damage skills are not as important as spawning or healing for early level players. So what do I think about his traits and skills? Well, firstly, his traits are pretty much non-existent, and so I don't find him to be an interesting character for legendary events. And he's a bit of a strange one in truth, because he really wants to get into the middle of a battle to buff other champions, but I don't feel that he's got enough strength to be able to do that in arena battle, nor against guild raid bosses. He doesn't have any extra defenses traits to deal with the damage that comes from being there. And right now, I just don't see him being a staple of anyone's team. He needs protection himself to be buffing the ranged champions, and unless you're looking at killing everyone in the first round, which might be entirely possible in an AI-controlled arena, but not really so much in tournament or faction arena, because if his team gets too powerful, then I would just be playing Gene Stealer's Cult, and then I don't care if a couple of my team dies in the first attack. They're all going to be back next round to wipe you out anyway. And I really feel that the Emperor's Children are missing someone that can taunt or distract the enemies, and I don't actually think there is a unit like that on the tabletop, but maybe some of you Emperor's Children experts can correct me there. So what modes does he fit into? Well, I don't know in truth at this time. We'll take a look at legendary events shortly, but with no traits, I feel he's going to be worse than other characters. In guild raids, we still don't have enough to put together a meta-beating ranged team, although that doesn't mean that you can't put together a fun chaos ranged team that does very well with Adamatar and Abaddon buffing, and Chiron, Volk, and maybe someone like Abraxas laying down the damage from afar, it's not going to hit the heights of other teams, but it might be a good starting point for those of you who love chaos. In Guild Wars, his skills are too precise, and so will not be useful over other champions in defense. And in Arena, I just don't see a ranged team that can work well enough against some of the other teams we have. Imagine trying to defend a team that jumps into your backline, or smashes through your front line, or just uses spawns to overwhelm you on its way to victory. So who do they work well with? Well, let's start by looking at them with the Emperor's Children we have so far. And obviously we're still missing a couple of characters here, and I'm really curious to see who you think will be joining this team and why, because there isn't any major synergy with Lucius. He just does his crazy thing on the side, and half the time is stuck inside someone leeching their health, so isn't even on the battlefield. But for Chiron, these pair were made to fight together, and if they're given time and space on the battlefield to lay down the pain, then they can definitely do that very well. Adamatar's passive will not only boost Chiron's range damage, but it's also going to boost his crit damage because he's a chaos troop, and with having a good chance to be critting with a Thrill Seeker's trait, these pair can really make a mess of the battlefield, and so if you face them, you'll need to prioritize them pretty quickly. Outside of that, like I said, you can play around with a ranged chaos team, or maybe just go full-on ranged damage team with Adamatar and Thaddeus Noble buffing Volk, Morgan Ra, and Chiron. I think I'm definitely going to have a play of that because it does sound fun if nothing else. So the overall take for me here is that we're still missing pieces of the puzzle for the Emperor's Children in more ways than we did for the Custodes or Gene Stealers, where it became pretty clear early on where they were going as a team. I still don't feel I have a real essence of what the Emperor's Children are trying to do here. They're a little bit all over the place in their playstyle, and that definitely doesn't match the tabletop game, where they're an absolute melee monster, a bit more like the World Eaters depending on how you set them up. And Lucius hasn't helped because he's such a solo champion, and even though he respawns after dying, the damage he does internally to someone that has swallowed him is incredibly low in later levels. When my Revas has 11k health and Lucius is doing 1500 to 2000 damage from inside at level 50, then that's a lot of turns that Lucius is not on the battlefield, and a lot of turns that Adamatar and Chiron don't have protection. Now, if you're watching this from the future, then firstly, hi, but secondly, I feel that there are definitely more pieces that are coming in here to help. Firstly, the rest of the Emperor's Children, because so far this year, I feel that Snowprint have absolutely smashed it out of the park with each faction and how they've come together. If we look at the main factions released this year, the Blood Angels, Gene Stealers, and Adeptus Custodes, then you have to rate them as really good factions. And so I hope for the first Chaos faction that we have had in a year and a half that this is also going to come together. And if you keep an eye on my channel, next week I'm going to be diving into the top 10 strongest factions in 2025 across the whole of Tacticus. So definitely hit that like and subscribe button because that's going to be an interesting one to see. But secondly, I still feel that Snowprint are trying to pull together a brand new guild raid meta team that focuses on ranged champions. And this is going to be difficult, of course, because guild raids are so fluid, and when a big chunk of ranged champions damage comes from the heavy weapon trait, then that's going to make precision placement key to this team's success. But I still feel that this is an absolutely worthy challenge for themselves to try and achieve. More meta teams means more fun for us and lots of diversity in our champion pool. So overall, currently, Adamatar is a bit of a miss for me. Of course, I'm going to pick him up, but I definitely won't be giving him too much love for the moment. I'll just wait and see how the rest of the Emperor's Children develop. But let's see where he fits into legendary events. Starting with the Pattermine event, which leaves us at the end of this month, we can definitely open Lord Kakophonist before that event, but even though it's unlikely that we'll have him leveled up in time unless we're hoarding all of our resources beforehand, I'll add him in there anyway. Either way, our next champion will have this event removed, and then we can see how things look. And so, in the Alpha track, he appears in the melee and max 4 hits battles. In the Beta track, he appears in the no summons and melee battles. And in the Gamma track, Chaos are not allowed, and so he doesn't get to play. And so that leaves him with an overall score in the Pattermine event, 210, which is below the average for this event, which currently sits at 274. Moving to the Dante event, in the Alpha track, he doesn't appear, even though he could appear. In the Beta track, he doesn't appear because Chaos are not allowed, and so he doesn't get to play. And then in the Gamma track, he only appears in the no power damage battle. And so that leaves him with a terrible terrible score of 50, which is equal bottom and is well below the average 192 for this event. Moving to the Trajan event, in the alpha track, chaos are not allowed and so he doesn't get to play, and in the beta track, he only appears in the no physical damage battle, and in the gamma track, he appears in the no bolter damage and minimum 3 hits battles, and that means that he gets an overall score for the Trajan event of 170 points, which is again below the average score for this event, which is currently 196 points. And so finishing up with the Lucius event, in the alpha track, he appears in the no bolter damage battle. In the beta track, chaos are not allowed, and so he doesn't get to play, and then in the gamma track, he only appears in the no power damage battle, and so this gives him another rubbish score of 95, which is well below the average score of 163 for this event. So, as expected, he comes in very low. In fact, he's in 95th position, which is the 5th worst champion in the game in legendary events. He currently doesn't even have a single battle that he would be more useful in than others, and I feel that even with his damage types, if they were added in as battles, so eviscerating and direct damage, then I already have champions with those damage types that are much more useful in other legendary event battles, so I really don't feel that he's going to be joining any priority for you in legendary events anytime soon. And so what do you think of Adamatar? Is he going to matter to you, or is he just going to be made madder by being left on the bench like a bad batter? Either way, you can check him out right now in the latest version of the Google Planner Sheets linked below.